Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Wednesday evening by Raj Tapalu. Normally, we talk after games, but for whatever reason, we've had some funny schedule quirks here to where we haven't been able to talk after the last couple of games. So we figured let's catch up, see where things are at, have a nice little conversation ahead of probably the most brutal stretch of the season for any team that any team has faced. 6 games in 8 days, I believe, is the total here. 4 of those games being against the Milwaukee Bucks and Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
So we will we'll go ahead and talk about that. I want to, temperature check basically. See where Raj is at. See where you guys, the audience, is at with this team right now. If it's like a fall back into apathy of like, oh shoot, here we go again. And see where we are. And I'll offer up where I stand on it as well. And then if there's time at the end of the show, Stephen A. Smith has been on an actual press tour after a 3-second in-person confrontation. Stephen A. is milking that thing for everything that he possibly can. And I think there's some, actually interesting aspects to that entire situation, as well as I just want to tell him to shut up. I like telling Stephen A. Smith to shut up, and that feels like a good opportunity to do so. So, if there's time, we'll do that at the end of the episode. Quick reminder, before we get into it, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. If you guys are tuning in on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. If you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, hit that subscribe button, hit the 5-star review button, and then also, very importantly, hit that share button. Tell your friends about it as well, and we'll keep this thing growing in the right direction. So, Raj, I'm going to just start it nice and easy.
Yeah.
Do you walk around with a helmet now because the sky might be falling? Like, where are you at?
It's funny because like whenever when I talk to people from the East Coast or another place, and the weather somehow always comes up, and and they'll tell their story of, oh man, it's awful here, and I have to somehow explain how 65 degrees is freezing cold to me, and that's sweater weather. So there's a little bit of that. No, look, it's been sunny for a while, and the weather still is beautiful here. It's starting to chill up. But I think with the Lakers, they've been on such a good streak. They were on an 8-game win streak. You had, pretty good health going through that, a roster that was starting to come together, that was playing well. And look, it's raining now. Is it hailing? Maybe, this is a tough part of the schedule. It's going to be some, tough bumps in the road. But no, I don't think the sky is falling yet. You are still, within the 2-seed reach. Now, how these Denver Bucks games go, we'll see. It looks like tomorrow's going to be another really zombie type of game where you're at such a deficiency in terms of size and athleticism that it's going to be tough to hit this baseline of competitiveness that you need. But no, until we got some good LeBron news as well today. It's just I just can't be. I'm not that concerned yet. There's some offensive stuff that I would like to see improve. Luka shot like 8 for 26, I believe, in our last game. Austin also continued to struggle following his calf injury. So hopefully a few days off from there, we'll have both of those guys in a better rhythm. And that's kind of the saving grace of the LeBron situation, is those two get some time to kind of work together and build some chemistry. But Anthony, I still feel like the sun is shining. It'll come up again. That's how weather works, right? And you get some bad days, you get some rain, you get some hail, you get some snow. I've never actually seen snow fall in my life. That's something hopefully I one day cross off the bucket list. But no, the sun will shine again, and this will be a nice test for two guards who really haven't found their rhythm together. I'm excited to see what they do against some really legit defenses coming up here with Denver and Milwaukee. Those are some nice series that you can really learn a lot from. So, and that's why you build this gap between us and the play-in, right? I just think that's the whole point of this. You're not in fight for your life mode like Phoenix is right now. Even the Warriors are kind of in that situation. The Clippers are in the situation where you just don't want to be fighting for your life for a play-in spot, and the Lakers aren't. It's enough of a gap there. You play these teams enough times going forward that I'm just not concerned yet. Now, if injuries continue to pile up, Jackson Hayes missing another game concerns me a little bit, but those things I think will work themselves out as we go forward before LeBron comes back here in about 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's falling. I wouldn't say that the sky is falling. I did Jovan's show earlier today. I don't know if it's aired yet. I don't think it's aired yet. He hasn't tweeted it out. But yeah, we had this conversation. I'm just gonna come out and say it. And I meant to say it on his show. I'll just come out and say it now. My bad. I got really, really optimistic about this team. I was saying that they were a championship, not favorite, but I thought that they would be, the Western Conference champion favorite heading into the playoffs in terms of betting. That was a thing that I said to Jovan, on the show. He and I recorded a whole podcast. We were really optimistic about the state of the Lakers, and then immediately the Lakers fell off a cliff. So I'm just going to say it. You know what? We got to be, big people. I'm a large person, but I'm
take
also
responsibility. Yes.
Yeah. Take accountability here and say, you know what, everybody? My bad. I'm sorry. If you would like, I could get right back to shitting on the Lakers all the time. And that's when things typically tend to turn around. I just don't really have anything to quite shit on right now. And that's the issue that we run into. I'm with you though, Raj. I do think it's rain that is falling from the sky. It is not pieces of sky that is falling.
Yeah.
It's an 82 game season, and the Lakers are going to go through ugly stretches when Luka is a Laker for the entirety of an 82 game season. That's going to happen. There are circumstances that just kind of like build up, and sometimes you look at your team and Chris Kaman is lying there on your bench because you don't have enough players to fill out an actual NBA roster. And this just happens to be one of those times. I would rather it happen right now than a few weeks from now when you are like up against it and you're saying, Jesus, is anybody going to get healthy in time for the playoffs? My one thing I will say that might be a step beyond where people kind of feel about this team, and I've said it over the last few days on these shows, is I think it's time to recalibrate expectations for the regular season. For a while there, it was like, go out and get the 2 seed, push it, do whatever you can, win as many games as you possibly can, get guys back as quickly as they can get back. Let's go out and we aren't going to catch OKC, obviously,
Sure.
as they beat the Boston Celtics tonight in Boston. But maybe, just maybe, you can go out and get yourself that 2nd seed. And I think it was fun for a little while, but I think given the way that the Lakers play basketball, it is really difficult. You ask a lot out of every single player on the court to play small as long as they do for as large chunks of the game as they do, to get after it defensively the way that they do, to get out and transition the way that they do. And you're, I think, seeing some of that attrition where you look at the kinds of injuries that the Lakers have sustained. It's a knee contusion for Jackson Hayes. It wasn't really a contact kind of situation. I just remember looking up and he was kind of rubbing his knee before he shot a free throw. And I was like, oh, cool. All right, we're going to not have that guy for at least a game. And then it was with Dorian Finney-Smith. He's been nursing this ankle thing all season. And with him, it's same kind of thing. You got to stay on top of it, because if that thing turns in the wrong direction, now you're looking at a Jalen Brunson situation. You have LeBron James. His like groin injury was pretty clearly the kind of thing that happens when a player is pretty tired and they just pivot wrong and it catches and he's not able to go for the rest of that game. Austin Reaves earlier this year had that calf strain that he's still clearly getting back from. Rui Hachimura landed wrong on a breakaway dunk, and his knee is now really sore and has been sore now for a couple of weeks. All of these things are attrition type things to me. And you look at the way that the Lakers were playing when they looked their best, and it takes a lot out of players to play that way. And I think we saw some of that attrition, and now it's just a matter of, all right, let's scale that back. Let's maybe not play on infinite turbo for all of these minutes and try to go out and get that second seed. No, let's scale that back. Let's be content with a top 4 seed, definitely a top 6 seed. But by the time we get to the postseason, the easily the most important thing here is getting everybody healthy.
100%. I do think the 2 seed is still something that they're chasing, and it's clear they had a bunch of games, Anthony, that they could have rested their stars. Both of those Clipper games, if you remember, the second one was on the second night of a back-to-back. Then they played the Clippers again on Sunday. They played both of those. I think that is a goal that they want to reach. It'll definitely be scaled back with the injuries to LeBron and then just the injuries to every wing and forward that exists on this team. Dorian out, Rui out, Jackson
It's so
Hayes.
annoying, dude. It's like this happened with the Lakers last year, where their injuries were these clump injuries, right? Where it was they're in football, you have positional rooms, right? You would literally there's a QB room, there's a running back room, there's a wide receiver room, there's a DB room, there's a O-line, D-line room, and so like in the late currently the Lakers wing room is just empty. It's
empty, yeah.
Everybody is in slings, and like I'm picturing them, and like remember back in the day, you at some point you watched TV, right? When you were like growing up, you watch cartoons. Remember how like a cartoon character would get like hit in the face, and then you would see like the cross band-aids.
Yes.
And then like Nelly tried to do that where he just had like the one band-aid there randomly. But yeah, like that's basically the Lakers wing room right now. Everybody's hurt, and it's all at the same position.
100%. So we're gonna have to fight hard, for these wins, especially defensively. But to me, like if Luka's healthy and Austin's still to go, I think you still have enough offensive firepower to kind of chase. Because I mean, you look at Denver's schedule; they play a lot of good teams as well. Memphis has been reeling. I think they just started to turn around. Houston's another team that is chasing that top 5 seed with the Warriors gunning behind them. All these teams are kind of in this race, and like the injury bug was going to bite at some point. Now it bit now and it bit everyone at the same time. But this is part of the 82 game grind. This is part of the calculation to me. LeBron wasn't going to play 82 games or whatever it is. He played 71 last year. He's at 58 this year. There's some theory going around that LeBron just gets hurt in March, which is insane. The numbers on that.
Nothing to do with the fact that he's been going on 40 and is now actually 40.
Right.
No
Exactly.
Way. It's the end of an 82 game season, and no way that a 40-year-old would break down in March.
No. Yeah. So I'm LeBron gets a much needed forced rest because it's clear LeBron wasn't sitting by his own choice anytime soon. My only concern, and I'll add to what you were saying, Anthony, we just watched OKC and Boston play. Those two teams are on gear 9, right? And I think they have one more gear to go to get to their 10th gear. The Lakers to me are on like gear 4 and 5, and I just don't know there's enough time.
I don't know that they have another gear.
Who doesn't have another gear?
Excuse me, OKC and Boston.
Well, I mean, there's one, like I think every team jumps a little bit in the playoffs, right? There's some cutting down the rotation. You can get to an 8-man lineup that really maximizes your talent or whatever.
Part of what makes those teams, and this is funny, we've seen this across all sports, but I think basketball is one of the top sports most affected by this, where the difference between postseason basketball and regular season basketball is so different. And you talk about 100%. Teams being willing to take that next step forward and cutting down your rotation and all that. Well, what makes OKC, what makes Boston, what makes Cleveland so overwhelming is that they are so deep and they can play so hard across their entire roster and just keep coming at you in waves. That was literally the tweet that I sent about OKC after that win tonight was like, wow, they just every single player 1 through 15 feels like can get out there and defend their ass off, and they can just throw. Yeah, they just keep on going. But in the postseason, you can't quite do that, and like that's I think a big reason why. And somebody took offense because on Passport I compared the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Atlanta Hawks, that team that had a whole team
That's Donovan Mitchell disrespect. He is,
I
so much
know
better
that
than
was the
any player.
central point. Maybe it was you. Were you the commenter? Because they
No,
were
I
pissed.
was not. I'm hearing about this now, but I would have had the same reaction that that person commented.
It
I'm
was
sure.
the face that you made right there was basically that person's comment.
Right.
And I'm not saying like you, because you're right. Donovan Mitchell is better than anybody from those old Atlanta Hawks teams. However, my point is that those Atlanta Hawks teams had so thoroughly gamed the math system back then and were so deep in terms of their roster with all guys like roughly at the same plane that when it came time to cut down your rotation, they were cutting out that they couldn't quite do it. And where other teams would just rely more heavily on their stars and players at the top of their rotation and therefore become better teams because those guys are on the court more often, Atlanta just kind of hit their ceiling.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that like that is definitely going to happen here with Cleveland and theirs. It's an apples to apples comparison. But I do think with a lot of these teams that are so overwhelming in the regular season, one thing that we are still trying to gauge and try to figure out how to predict what they're going to be able to do in the postseason is because if Cleveland cuts down on their rotation, like, is there a wing that they would more confidently lean on more? Or would they just continue to play the same rotation and try to go at you at waves? Whereas, like, if I think Boston does kind of fit this, like they can take a next step forward because it is more Jason Tatum, it is more Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Like it's more of those guys out there on the court. If Kristaps Porzingis ever gets healthy, more of him winds up really helping them as well, even though they have a really deep center rotation. I saw Celtics fans complaining about I said this to Eric the other day too, but there are actual Celtics fans who were complaining about their center situation. And I'm like, motherfuckers, like if you don't shut up.
Right. Yeah.
But
This team.
yeah, but anyway, this is kind of rambling at this point. But the Lakers, I do think, though, and one of the things that really excited me about this Lakers team is that I do think there's another gauge, another gear that they can hit because you cut down that rotation and it's more Luka and it's more LeBron and it's more Austin.
Yeah. The funny part is that, we were talking about that Hawks team, just they were going to run into 2017 LeBron or whatever it was, right? It's just, so it didn't really matter a lot. And
yeah,
Al Horford somehow still being as effective as he is, being part of that team, and LeBron still being the guy that can take you out. I just think that's hilarious. That feels like so long ago, and those two are still pivotal parts, obviously, of two winning teams. My thing is, I think Cleveland can cut out like a Ty Jerome, right? That's where it can go down, and Donovan Mitchell can just up his usage, and he's really shown that he can do that in the playoffs and still be super efficient at that. Oklahoma City, again, also can just lean way more on Shea and J-Dub and Chet Holmgren that they do now than, more of, the offense that they run currently. But yeah, like my point was the Lakers are on like gear 4 and 5, and without LeBron, you can't really take that next gear together, right? I want all these players kind of going up at the same time. And I'm not sure the Lakers they don't have time on their side, and they don't have injuries on their side. Like if you have a full team, Rui's part of this as well. That's to me my only concern with this stretch. I don't think they'll fall farther than, I'd be shocked, Anthony, they fall farther than 4th during the stretch. I think they'll be able to play just enough good basketball to steal a win here and there. Milwaukee's been playing better, but they're not, a super great team this year. That Kuzma improved their roster, but those Denver games are going to be tough. But that's another team that's struggled defensively. I think they gave up like 130 to OKC the other day. It's just I don't think they're going to lose at the pace to drop below 4. So yeah, as long as LeBron comes back in like 2-3 weeks, I think you can survive it. We have a lot of games during this stretch, but yeah, I'd be shocked they fall below 4. But again, maybe you go to 4 and you play Houston in the first round. Not the worst outcome either in terms of who are those play-in teams going to be. But yeah, I'm not too concerned yet. We'll see if the injuries continue to pile up, and hopefully we get just some bigs back. It reminds me of when we were playing like 5 point guards at one time a few years ago, because everyone was hurt. I think Isaiah Thomas was like one of those point guards.
He
But
played center.
yeah, I think he did the jump ball. But
He jumped center. Yeah. I'm looking at the standings right now, and I'm not sure. Let me see if they refresh. I mean, the only game that would have changed. Oh, the Oklahoma City just qualified. Yeah, just clinched a playoff berth tonight by beating the Boston Celtics on March 12th. All right, what am I doing here, Raj? Quick aside. Because OKC profiles as a team I should be nervous about in the postseason, but I'm
you
not.
should.
Is
Yeah.
it just how young they are? Because
Yeah.
I saw Wendy had that rant on ESPN. I thought, and everything that he said was facts. Everything that he said was true. You know, like they are a historically great defense. They do have the personnel to match up with just about any team. They do have an MVP candidate leading the way in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and yet I still can't quite actually get scared by this team.
Yeah. What I think it is, I think J-Dub being your number 2, I think that just changes how people view that team. SGA, and then it's J-Dub, it's Chet Holmgren. Like, who's their number 2? You're really not sure. Can J-Dub be the guy that you give the ball to if Shai's trapped, at the top of the key? And can he hold you for 24 points or put up 30 in a playoff game? I think that's where the concerns are, and also their age, right? They're such a young team, and they've never really gone past the second round yet. So those teams kind of are they have to prove it, right? And I think Shai's shown that he is a playoff performer. But losing to Dallas in the second round, I think it just kind of killed a lot of the hype for them. So there was nothing they could do in this regular season to kind of, change the minds. Their numbers are insane. They really do profile as one of the best teams ever, really. And just their win percentage and their defense just profiles as amazing. But I do think the playoffs are about matchups, and that's where this is interesting, right? You just mentioned the Atlanta Hawks, and I'm not going to do the thing where I compare this OKC team to that Hawks team. But there is some,
See
no.
how easy it is to do it?
No, that's not what I'm doing at all. But what I'm saying is that there is something towards an 82 game sample versus a 7 game sample, right? Like, I think I made this point a few pods ago, but there's a difference when you have everyone that can switch and guard, and it's different when LeBron's actually backing down that player. That's a totally different thing. In an 82 game grind, a regular season, those stats will bear out one thing, and then in a series, if you have one bad matchup, it'll mess you up. If you can't, switch or hedge correctly on LeBron off screens, then you're toast. And that's something that's interesting with the OKC matchup. And I really hope we get a healthy OKC and a healthy Lakers matchup at least once, but before the playoffs start, so we can kind of see film on that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think OKC just doesn't put the fear in teams when they should. Their numbers bear out that they should be an extremely feared team. I mean, there are 11 games over like the second seed. It's absurd. They're having an absurd season.
Like right now, I mean, like Denver is playing right now, so we'll see where they wind up. But yeah, it's two things. It's two actual basketball things that make me a little reticent to call them the buzzsaw that they profile to be. One, they are susceptible to these cold streaks that in a tight 7 game series, you have one of those cold streaks at the wrong time in a home game, and you allow home court advantages to switch back around to the other team. Even given the way that they can defend, it's just that is the song of death, man. Like that just ends it. 2, even while I grant that SGA and he's my MVP this year, I think he probably will wind up being the MVP, though Jokic is making an insane claim for it as well. But he's a different kind of MVP. He's kind of like a Steve Nash MVP, where normally the kinds of MVPs or the best players that like go out and win you series are wings. And he's a little small to have that kind of two-way impact. He's a great defender, don't get me wrong. And especially at the point of attack, and he's such a tone setter for them defensively. That is a completely different thing altogether. But it, SGA just doesn't. Not yet. He could wind up being that kind of a player, but you look at the kinds of best players on teams or MVPs that go out and go on those crazy playoff runs, and it's LeBron, it's KD, it's Jokic recently, it's all of these bigger players, and basketball is still a sport that really matters with size. And I guess like 2A here is the amount of grifting that team does on both sides of the ball. It's a lot of flopping. It's a lot of like it's a lot of and I just saw the Mark Dagno permanent sub thing.
Yes,
Like
fascinating.
it's so funny. It's a team that like I would normally, and I am really into. I really like watching them play. And then as soon as they start doing that nonsense, I'm like, you're too good for this. You
It's
know,
funny. People love that. Like he
I
got
hate
credit
that.
for that. He got
I
credit
hate
for that.
Yeah, it's a wiener move. Like it's so like it's the kind of thing that you do when you zip up your quarter zip all the way to the top. Like it's just I don't it just it annoys me. And I
Sure.
know, and I'm I get cranky. It's 9:45 my time, and all that stuff. And I am just kind of like in general a cranky person. But it just like SGA's foul grifting. And I know OKC fans are really quickly to jump on the no. Look at his free throw rate. Look at his free throw rate. It's really not that crazy. He spends a lot of time. Okay, breathe. It's okay. However, I watched the guy play, and it's a lot of
Sure.
grifting. It's a lot of leaning in and jumping at funny angles to try to get contact rather than to just try to score. And yeah, it's that stuff. Lou Dort, like it's the way that he is simultaneously allowed to hand check and border on like harass players that he's guarding, and then also fall over and get calls all the time. It's really annoying. It's just not it's not very fun to watch all the time. And I think part of my analysis here is my own like personal bias where I just don't want to see that stuff rewarded with a championship.
I think that's fair. I also think SGA, at least for me, has entered into the different class of score, right? And like he's averaging what I think 40 points a game in his last 6 or whatever it was, maybe before this Boston game, just closed out the Celtics on the road. I think he's in conversation for best scorer in the league. I put him in that class where he can absolutely be the best player on a title team. But my concerns with OKC, I share some of yours. Lou Dort is a player that may just foul out. And he can do that, and the Lakers also have guys that can kind of edge you on to commit silly fouls and stuff like that. But they're super talented. Chet Holmgren's jump shot I think will be super important. I don't know how much you trust Chet Holmgren as a 3-point shooter, but that's a huge threat for them. Isaiah Hartenstein was an awesome add, another guy that's really shown that he can step up in playoff scenarios. So they're an awesome team, and again, like they're hitting on gear 9 and just on all cylinders, and I'm just not sure the Lakers get to that point. But you're an awesome team, but I understand the concerns. You have to kind of win it to get that respect, right? I think Denver had a lot of these questions as well. Can Jokic be your center, in the
Milwaukee there
playoffs?
for a bit too. Yeah.
Right. They should trade Jokic for a rim protector because you need to defend. And then once Jokic won, all those conversations died. It's just now they're on to Jamal Murray, but like all those at least Jokic conversations have stopped, and I think that's the same for OKC.
I'll also say, like, because I see the comments here, right? Luka and AR do the same thing too. Okay. In Luka's regard, it annoys me too, because he's like, I think there's a certain level of player that you become, and you shouldn't be able to do that anymore. Right. Or you shouldn't be doing that anymore.
Yes.
James Harden, Trae Young, Luka, SGA. I don't think Austin is at that level of a player, in my opinion. And you look at Austin as an athlete compared to SGA as an athlete, and it's like, I'm fine with Austin trying to get every advantage that he can possibly get to regain some of the advantages that his competition goes up against. But SGA is, what is he, like 6'4", maybe even 6'5", crazy lengthy, insane breaks, super touch around the court, around the basket, crazy handles. He's a top, like, at least 5 to 10 player. And I just think when you get to that level, you should not continue to try to grift in the way that he does. And trust me,
Right.
I've made this point. We could find proof if we want. Although I deleted a ton of tweets before like 2020, but still, back when James Harden was at his peak, I said the same thing there because I would see James Harden do incredible things on a basketball court. Like, yes, please. That's the
Right.
player. That's a really fun player to watch. And then at the same time, he would do like all the swing through stuff and all the fouls and falling over anytime somebody challenged him from 3-point range or contested a shot from 3-point range, and just walk away from it saying, yeah, that guy's never going to win.
That's a fun combo to know what the line is for that player, because I agree with that as well. There's sometimes you watch even Luka, right? You're like, you could just hit the three.
Just
like
play.
you're too good to like.
Well, did you see the play? Did you see the play against Brooklyn just recently, where there were a couple calls in a row where what players will do is basically, I'm left-handed, and so if a right-handed player is dribbling to his left, what they'll do is they'll start leaning further and further and further into the right, make just enough contact and kind of throw their bodies to make it look like there's that contact there. And then in so doing, create room for themselves to get that shot up off of the glass. And a lot of times it leads to and ones. Yeah. Luka made like 2 or 3 of those in a row. Tried to make that play 2 or 3 times in a row. Didn't get that call any of those times. And then ironically, on the other end, somebody for the Nets did the exact same thing and got the call. And that's the moment to really look at Luka, because that's when you see his face get all red. So the next time down, Luka says, all right, fine. There's somebody standing there in the restricted area. Go bleep yourself. Boom. And he absolutely levels that guy, gets a wide open layup as a result of it. And I'm just sitting there watching this, and I'm just saying, why not just score?
Yeah.
Can you just score? And I understand the advantage gained. I understand how efficient that makes you as a player when you can get to the free throw line as often as SGA, Luka, Austin, Harden do. You have Kobe pictures behind you. I have a Kobe picture behind me. And I know he did his share of free throw. He shot his share of free throws too. But to me, the point should be scoring. The point of a possession should be scoring the basketball in that live play, not getting to the free throw line as your top priority. And I just don't feel like that's always the case.
Yeah, one of my favorite players is Dame, and he's just one of the worst culprits of this, where he'll just, he'll jump into the screen. Come around screen, and he's not really trying to shoot this, but would a sneaky person who does this, and because he doesn't talk a lot, Anthony, his reputation obviously this doesn't keep with him, but Kawhi is another guy. If you watch him, he screams he screams for a foul on every single play, and I'm like, you're too good. Like, it's already impossible to guard you. And every play, Kawhi will scream and one or a and something. It's like you can hear it come off the TV. I'm like, it's a wide open mid-range jumper. How are you saying, like, where are you trying to get the foul from? But no, it's a funny line to look at, like, who would you be okay with doing this? Like, is Bradley Beal now entered the point where he should be able to grip because the talent, because the talent has gone there? Paul George, another guy, like, can Paul George now be a guy who does it too? Yes. Yeah. It's just funny to like think of who are the players that you'd be.
It is funny that like on any given year you might fall above or below that line. So like if you're playing really, really well, it's like no, scale it back, no more grifting.
Right.
And Paul George has been so bad the last couple of years. He's like, you know what, man, go for it. Get your free throws.
It's almost like we need it. You see that stat? Quentin has more 30-point games than Paul George this season. Like, that's for the Sixers. Quentin Grimes for the Sixers.
Quentin Grimes.
He's had more. He has more 30-point games than Paul George for the 76ers this season. I think is just an incredible stat to kind of show Paul George. Yeah. Shout out Nico. Send another guy to.
That's another one. Nico.
Yeah.
That easily the worst trade Nico has made in the last year. Right. The Quentin Grimes trade.
Can't think of another.
I can't think of any other ones. All right. Let's quickly hit on we hit on the expectations. All right, I'll just really quickly, Raj, I'm sure you've seen Stephen A. Smith running around like Pac ever since
It's hard to miss. I'm not gonna lie. It's tough to miss. I didn't see Stephen A at the Bronny game last night though. I mean,
yeah, weird. So to recap, Stephen A. Smith had that one rant, and I told you, by the way, Raj, I told you this was what it was when when LeBron confronted Stephen A. I told you it was the B line that Stephen crossed in LeBron's eyes was questioning LeBron as a father. Right. That's where I think LeBron took real issue with the things that, and by the way, I get it.
Rightfully so. Yeah.
I say this to Jen all the time. The thing that I think, easily best at and take the most pride in is being a dad. It's easily my favorite thing in the world to do. And for LeBron to be top 2 players at worst in the history of basketball, and I can guarantee you, just based on his interactions with his kids, how long, him operating as a family man as long as he has, I can guarantee you he takes that same level of pride in being a father. He just also has a ton more competition with like what he is best at, right? Than I do. I think I'm a pretty good podcaster. I think I'm a good cook. I'm good at keeping the lawn up. That's about it. LeBron's like, I'm a top 2 player ever in basketball, and I'm competing with that for as good as a dad I am. And when Steven talked about, it's one thing to say Bronny isn't good, or Bronny may never be good, or the Lakers shouldn't have drafted Bronny. You could have whatever opinion you're going to have on that. But when you start talking about LeBron as a father and start attacking, in his mind, attacking him as a person, because that's you talk about ball all you want. When you start talking about somebody as a father, as a parent, you're talking about them as a person. And that's where I think LeBron, when I saw that line, when I saw that rant from Steven, I was like, ooh, that's going to piss off LeBron. Did I think it would lead to a third quarter confrontation while the Lakers were in the middle of a 1 possession game against the Knicks on national television? Probably not. I wouldn't have predicted that. But I do think that at some point, Stephen A was going to get clapped back on. And it was so funny, and it was so predictable how all of this played out, where LeBron, shoves him in a locker and tells him, stop, fuck out of here, stop.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see like Stephen A like, what? And then he sits right back down. And you just knew that because Stephen A, and he even did the whole, I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to make this, but it went viral, and you didn't want to talk about it on your show, or you didn't want to talk about it, but it went viral. So now stay tuned to First Take, and then stay tuned to my YouTube show. And then also stay tuned to the Gilbert Arenas show that I did to talk about it. Stay tuned to Fox News where I talked about it. Stay tuned. Maybe I missed any too. He might have done some other shows where he talked about it as well. And it was very clearly a very self-serving. Everything that Stephen A. Smith does is very self-serving. You don't get to the level that he's at without being self-serving. However, when you're going to sit here and call LeBron soft or lame or whatever for calling you out in person in that moment in front of a whole bunch of people, and then go on a variety of shows that add up to tens of millions of followers and subscribers and all of that shit, to go out and tell people about that private exchange, you can't, like, those two things can't happen in the same conversation, in the same breath. And then on top of it, to then go a step further and say what you would have said to LeBron. I'm sure this has happened to you, Raj, where you have an exchange with somebody, you talk shit on a basketball court, somebody says something, and you don't quite have the exact response to have, and then you're on the drive
Later
home
on.
and you
Yes.
think of the exact
The
thing to
perfect
say.
response.
Yeah, the perfect response. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh. And it's a maddening experience. We've all had it. We've all lived in that moment where like the perfect thing, and the time to say that perfect thing has moved on. You can't go back in time and say that thing again. But
Sure.
what you can't do is go on all of these shows and be like, what I would have said. No, bitch, you didn't say that. Like if you're gonna say what I would have said, what I would have done, you had the opportunity, bud, and you missed the opportunity. LeBron saw the opportunity. You know what he did with the opportunity? He shoved your ass in a locker. So like, stop with the what I would have done, what I would have said. And LeBron is lame because he got the one up on me because it's the same people who complain about a sucker punch in a fight. It's a fight, man. It's a fight. You get into a fist fight with somebody and you complain about the fact that they threw a punch before you were ready. You should have been ready. If you're willing to step out there and call this guy a bad father or question his abilities as a father because of a decision that he had to help his son live up a dream to play for the Lakers, you got to stay ready, man. Head on a swivel. LeBron's standing right over there. You question the guy as a father, you're probably going to hear about it.
Yeah.
So that's why in all of this like press tour that he's been on has just been so ridiculous. And I've had enough.
Yeah. I don't know. Like sometimes I think about, again, we're both in this industry, Anthony. I mean, not in the same exact industry that Stephen A is maybe in, but pretty adjacent. I don't know if I blame the player, you blame the game, right? Like this is the game, and so he was just awarded. I don't play very many video games, but I'm guessing he was just awarded like a bajillion tokens to be like, oh, this is amazing. This can feed for weeks. What do they say? Like this will feed the streets is like
Feed
how
families,
the young
yeah.
people say it. Yeah, it'll feed families. Like this content is gonna feed me for weeks, and he's using it, and he's gonna use every bit of piece of it. My only issue, and obviously the father stuff, it's rightfully so. LeBron got upset. Just I know Stephen A is not watching Bronny games. I know he has probably not seen a single Bronny performance at all.
Yeah.
But if he was like at these games, and I can probably respect the take a little bit more, not the father part, but this guy's not an NBA player, or it's disrespectful to have him out there. But he hasn't seen him play at all, right? And a friend of this show and friend of both of ours, Mirjam Swanson, was at the game last night, and we're having she wrote a great Bronny piece today, by the way, and we were having this conversation how Bronny doesn't need any of this, right? Like he doesn't. Like none of their family do, but it's kind of a testament to what they do, to where all his kids also feel like they want to be productive and be contributing members in whichever way that they choose. And so, yeah, just Stephen A is going to go on his tour, and it's sad that this is kind of the game and this is the way it's propped up. And I'm sure every one of those appearances did astronomical numbers because that was the headline. It just is. And I think it's very telling. LeBron's a very smart dude. He knew what that would do, and he still went on and done it, right? There's probably a way that LeBron could have 100% met Stephen A in some back locker room. I'm sure there's ways to get him in places where
But
cameras
like, even if he would have done that, Stephen A would have gone on those shows. Like, actually, I think it's a lot smarter of LeBron to do it in that public sphere where everybody saw it. Everybody saw exactly how it went down. And you could read. I think even that night, right? I put it in the Slack. I put exactly what it wound up. He actually wound up saying, right? Keep my son out of that shit,
right.
And we all saw how it played out. And if it would have happened, because this, by the way, I saw Jamel Hill make this point too. This is the kind of thing that happened all the time back when there was a lot more reporting and there was a lot more access to players.
Right.
Where somebody would report something and a player wouldn't like it, or a coach wouldn't like it, or an executive wouldn't like it. And by the way, like Rob Pelinka does this all the time with people on the beat. Like I'll get back channel messages and stuff, and like, hey, like you should maybe pipe down a little bit on this and that and the other. And he's not alone. Like Daryl Morey follows a ton of reporters and DMs people all the time to, they just want their side of the story told when reporting comes out.
Sure.
And it's a very human thing to want. And so this kind of confrontation happens all the time, happened over the years, continues to happen now, will continue happening so long as journalists tell the story as they see it, and people want stories told the way that they want it to be told. And I actually think LeBron was smart to do this in the public forum that he did, because it's like we all get to see exactly how that went down. My one regret in all of this, Raj, Stephen A. Smith has been on this crazy media tour. There's multiple angles of this confrontation, all this stuff. Not one person has interviewed Larry David to get his thoughts on the matter, because Larry, you didn't see this? Stephen A. Smith said the people who were standing next to him on either side of him was Ari Emanuel, his like the founder of the agency that reps Stephen A. Smith.
Okay.
And Larry David. Do you know who Larry David is? You know, like tell me you know who Larry David is.
I've seen his face on like at sports, they'll show him,
Curb
but
Your
I
Enthusiasm, Jerry Seinfeld, like Seinfeld show. Like
Seinfeld, yes. He's the maker of Seinfeld, right? He's
yeah.
the writers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he also like he did Seinfeld with cussing for HBO, and it's an incredible show.
Okay.
And this was so like, please, anybody in the comments who has ever watched Curb, tell me this doesn't seem like an incredible episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where LeBron James walks over after Stephen A. Smith goes on some stupid rant about him. LeBron James walks over, bumps Larry David while he's like holding a drink or eating a mustard with some hot dog. Larry David has mustard all down his front, and and Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James are getting into it. And then on his way, after talking to Stephen A. Smith and walking onto the court, because remember the Lakers were playing their game still. It was the third quarter when this went down.
It was halftime. Yeah.
On his way back over, LeBron like looks over at Larry David and fuck you too, Larry David. You shouldn't have been standing there. Larry David now has to sit to the entire second half courtside with mustard all down his shirt. I'm telling you, like that's my only regret in this entire thing is how badly we whiffed on getting Larry David's side of everything that went down.
Yeah, no, like this is just incredible content. And again, I think LeBron knew exactly what he was doing, and Stephen A, rightfully as a content maker and a guy who lives off this, knew exactly what he got in return for it, right? And he doesn't want to look like a sucker either. So the story continues to shift little by little. Every appearance, it changes a bit in terms of what he said or what he would have said. You know, how that went down and how it should have went down.
I don't know. There's no angle that picked it up, but there was actually a moment where LeBron actually like bumped me a little bit.
Right.
And I was
yeah. I didn't want to mess up the flow of the game, right? Stuff like that. You know, I didn't want to mess with the flow, and you know, I'm sitting courtside. Yeah, but to the point of this always happens, or well, Jamil Hill said this would happen more frequently in the past. I do think there's just a line, you know, of you can critique my play, but it's a little different when you hit a personal attack. And I do think Stephen A and Skip Bayless have changed the sports conversation in terms of how it's perceived, and they have towed that line, right? I remember there was a point where
they crossed that line.
Yeah, they've towed it and they've destroyed it. But I remember Skip Bayless, he was on with like Jalen Rose, and he was talking about how Skip would call Chris Bosh like Posh Spice, you know, just because he wasn't playing well. And Jalen's like, that's not basketball. Like that's, you know, that has nothing to do with the game. I think Skip's response was, look at the contracts. You know, it's just, you know, which again just doesn't. There's no, you know, it's not related, but. I find that super interesting where, you know, Stephen A understands how big he is. And I think when you have to talk on TV that much about stuff you're probably not following that closely, you get in trouble with stuff like this. But yeah, LeBron was right to be upset, and it looks like he just took matters into his own hands. And we'll see if Stephen A continues to talk about Bronny in the same way going forward.
I don't think LeBron cares about. Well, no, I take that back. I think he does care about Bronny and the way that people talk about Bronny. But again, I think the moment, and I know this is now like potentially crossing the line as well. But I think the moment that Stephen A talked about his abilities as a father, not Bronny's abilities as a basketball player, but LeBron's choices as a father, that is when LeBron took issue, you know.
Sure.
And like that's the moment that I think really kind of stuck out here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what put it over the
I think
line.
he had an exchange with Richard Jefferson, right? Where he was
Yes.
talking to Richard Jefferson, and he said, like, yeah, he talked about me as a father,
Yeah.
and like
yeah.
came out and said, like, that is actually what went down, and you know, I just thought it was all pretty easy to predict how this was all going to play out.
For sure. And I think that probably put it over the line. Like, I'm sure LeBron doesn't like Stephen A going on TV and his son being told that he doesn't even belong in the same rooms, right? Like that's tough for, I'm sure, for a father to hear, and then to just put it all the way over and saying as a father, that probably put it over the line for LeBron.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and dive on into the super comments here and start with this. By the way, I have seen somebody use the Kirby analysis. I think it was Edwin, my dude Edwin from Silver Screen, used the Kirby you know, comparison here, and I just want you to know, Edwin, that my lawyers are working on this. I have copyright over this. Like, you could have compared him to anybody you wanted. As soon as you compared him to Kirby, now we got to get lawyers involved. So
I want this comparison to go away, and we just doubled it. We got someone else using it. Oh man.
all right. I think, yeah, let me see. Let me just make sure. All right. First comment here, super comment. Justin Tyndall writes, did Pelinka watch any Len film before signing him? He played 36 games for the Kings and averaged 7.2 minutes a game. That should have told you something. Raj, you were a lot more against the signing than I was at the time. My belief is that, well, for one thing, we know that the Lakers don't have a pro scouting department. They'll send out, you know,
They watch games. They watch games. They're not a pro scouting department, but like,
well, but it helps to have scouts.
sure.
It helps to have people who, you know, are paid specifically to keep an eye on certain things. And I think this is one of those situations where that deficiency kind of reared its ugly head. Because I'm going to say, I'm at a scouting the department deficiency too, because I was like, well, he's big and he can help a little bit. You did not hold that
No.
stance very much, so I'll let you run the victory lap here on Alex.
I mean, I don't even want to run this lap, you know, because it's just not a fun one. Don't want to waste my legs on this, but no, it's just the issue for me was, like, we have Christian Coloco was right there, you know, in the G League.
I don't understand what's been going on there with Coloco all year.
I don't either. I've said it multiple times. I think he's the best defensive big in the G League. Like, that's how productive he is on that end, and how smart he is. Is he the perfect center? No, but I just thought the identity that this team was moving towards, Alex Len just really grabbed the rope and pulled it all the way back. It's just, you see him, the way he moves, he just cannot move on the floor. And maybe he's trying to get in his own conditioning. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with his physicals or anything like that. But yeah, Alex Len experiment, I would think, would be done very, very soon here. So yeah, I was not a fan of it. I get it from, like, he's a big dude and there's big dudes to go through in the Western Conference, but yeah, if you watch any of,
played against any of those big dudes when there's been opportunity.
I still think the funniest Alex Len moment is just when Luka is like about to throw him a lob and he's like, no, dude, I'm not getting that. Luka's like, you're 7'3" and the rim is 10. Like, how, you don't have to go that far. He's like, no, dude, like, just get the ball somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems scared to shoot on the Lakers. it's which is not ideal. Not ideal.
Especially
all right,
when you're
BG,
next to the rim. Yeah.
BG, like, all offenses, like, basically try to get you as close to the rim as possible. The ball gets to him and he's like, nope. All right, BG the Kid writes, totally unobjective opinion here, but Jason Tatum fouls on legit every single play on both ends. It's wild. Also, OKC can beat them in a series. Well, they beat them tonight. So, and I think that's the second time this season that they beat them.
Yes,
OKC, I believe, swept Boston this year. Again, they profile as a team that I should be a lot more nervous about than I actually am. But for whatever reason, maybe it's a lens situation where I can't get out of my brain won't let me get out of my own way here. I will say this, so on the Jason Tatum thing, this is something that I want the Lakers to eventually arrive at if they're going to continue down this path and make this kind of their multi-year identity, is players like Tatum, players like Paul George, players like we talked about Lou Dort earlier, these guys who do push that boundary, cross that line, toe that line, however you want to put it, with refereeing and the rule book, to the point where OKC fouls on every single play. I'm just going to come out and say it. And I'm saying it as a compliment. I swear to God, I am.
Yeah.
OKC fouls on every single play that they're on defense, but they're basically daring referees to call it every single time down.
Right. You can't call it every time. Yeah.
And you're going to miss some. And OKC is basically running the risk of, as long as you miss those calls more often than you make them, we're good, because we're going to have the advantage there. And if the Lakers are going to continue with, playing small and suffocating teams on the perimeter, employing a ton of wings, that's a place that I think they need to land eventually too.
There's a level of physicality that they bring the game up to. And, physicality isn't always toughness. Those two don't have to be exactly aligned. But I think for OKC, that's kind of what they hang their hat on, right? SGA is the silky, smooth scorer, right? And J-Dub is some of that. But everyone else is a nasty wing, right? Kason Wallace, even obviously Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, right? These guys are just nasty wings that are going to be uber physical with you, and they bring that every time. And to your point, that's a positive to me. They're able to bring that level of enthusiasm on the defensive end every night, and that's part of why they're 12 games up to me on, the second seed. Jason Tatum fouling on every play. I love the totally unobjective opinion, because that's like just prefacing.
I think they're being sarcastic.
Right. Yeah.
In my not at all biased opinion, Boston should be suspended for the rest of their games, because
what's funny,
they clearly
Anthony,
cheated this year.
Tatum is kind of like the superstar version of OKC, right? It's like everything is right, but they're like, Colin Cowherd had this thing where you're like, close your eyes and imagine Tatum, and I'm not doing that, but there is something where you're like,
I like that thing. I like the bit.
Really?
I like the take.
Okay, I think
that's good. So basically, Colin Cowherd said, all right,
there's no aura. Is what
picture Michael Jordan,
right?
And you see the smile, you see the swagger, you see him flying through the air. Picture LeBron, he's completely overwhelming, and he's dominating, and he's flexing his muscles. Now picture Jason Tatum.
See, that's
you can't see anything.
That's just unfair. Like, that's just, to do all those things. But yeah, something about Tatum, and this is just a flaw in me. I'm not even saying like I'm right in this, and maybe it's just a Celtic hate bias in this, but I can understand in terms of, he just feels like the superstar version of what you were talking about with OKC. Everything looks right. The package is incredible. Someone I forgot on Twitter who said it. They're like, if you were going to build the perfect basketball player with AI, Jason Tatum would spit out, and they're not wrong, right? High level wing, two-way play, can shot create, can play make a little bit, but it just doesn't, he just is not put in those classes of SGA, Luka, Jokic, all those guys.
He has too much help. Like, it's impossible to say.
You think it's the supporting cast that?
Yeah, he has too much help, because
his numbers are still insane, and he still had
but they can be insane, they can be not insane, and Boston can win regardless. And that's the part that I think is the big holdup here. And look, Boston is an older team, right? We've already seen Drew Holiday take a bit of a step back here. Kristaps Porzingis hasn't been as available this season as he was last year. Al Horford is, for all of the LeBron is 40 jokes, Al Horford is that rare person who is bald and still somehow balding because he still has that hairline. Like maybe eventually Boston will have a little bit less more help surrounding Jason Tatum, and if they maintain the same level of winning, then I'll say, okay, yeah, he definitely belongs in that class of superstar. Because the whole aura thing, for one thing, it's way too young a concept for me. And it was like, as much as I like Colin Cowherd's like version of it, it still very much felt like, how do you do, fellow kids? Him talking about
Right.
aura,
Yes. Back in my day, we,
how do you do, fellow young people? But I think with Tatum, I just, he has too much help. You say what would you, if you put, hey, build the perfect basketball player or the perfect modern basketball player,
right.
and you ask AI to build it, okay, maybe they shoot out Jason Tatum, but they also might shoot out Jaylen Brown because that's and their teammates.
Right. Yeah.
Put together like the perfect
Yeah.
role player for modern times. Oh shit, there's Derek White. Hey, could you do me a favor? Put together AI. Do me a favor. Put together the perfect modern point guard, like 3-and-D point guard. Oh, hey, there's Drew Holiday.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, we kind of need this unicorn big who can defend the rim and also spread the floor and can handle the ball a little bit, can pass a little bit too. Oh, there's Al Horford. Oh, shoot, there's also Kristaps Porzingis. Like,
sure.
It's just their team is too good. And I say that, like, if Boston fans, if this does get aggregated, if it gets clipped and it's me sounding salty, it's because I'm fucking salty. They're too good. I don't like the Celtics looking good.
Yeah, my only point with this is, like, you're right for this season and maybe last, but I mean, Tatum's been in conference finals consistently, and it's not like the Celtics won before him. Obviously, the finals MVP was not awarded to him. It was awarded to Jaylen Brown, but just, it's weird because he's been just a consistent on a winning teams pretty much his entire career, save for 1 or 2 years.
For a great organization.
Yeah, but it's just, he's what's that meme where I think Isaiah Thomas is like, I was not picked or whatever. I was not chosen.
Met all the qualifications.
Yeah, I met all the qualifications.
Yeah.
Tatum's probably like, I've gone to the conference finals 4 more times than SGA has. Like, me and Jokic have the same amount of rings, right? Like, I don't have an MVP yet, but I've been on teams that won 59, 60, like, but he's just not put in there. And I don't know, something's missing. I can't, again, it's a flaw in me. I can't know exactly what that is, but I understand it from he's just not put in those superstar conversations. And maybe you're right.
He got to conference finals in like a much weaker Eastern Conference, even than it is now. And
I mean,
the East has been such a disaster for so long. All you need to do is like be able to chew gum and not choke while you're walking at the same time to get to at least the second round. And then there's like, all right, can you win he also lost to Miami in a big upset. He lost to Jimmy Butler in a series that he probably shouldn't have lost. It's just, I really think, for one thing, he's super boring. And I think he's intentionally boring.
See, I think that too. There's no public facing image, and not saying you have to do that, but like, he has a 55 point like game 7 closeout in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But you don't think of that. Like, that just doesn't come in your head. Like, oh yeah, Tatum just doesn't ring up when you talk about Jason Tatum. So
yeah, I if he was a Laker, I'd like him a lot. He wears the Kobe thing too, and
of course,
there's a lot to like there. There really, really is. But I think we're also talking about, it's what we're talking about right now, Raj, is kind of a version of the whole face of the league conversation, and how the public feels about guys is just, it's not really up to them, and it's this imprecise science that, like, Anthony Edwards, you just look at him, you watch him play, you watch the way he carries himself on the court. That dude just exudes cool. It's just like a cool, the way that he, like, everything about. Now I think
would you rather have
public might turn
put you on the
him a little
spot.
bit.
Anthony Edwards or Jason Tatum? Who would you rather
Right
have?
now,
'Cause
isn't Tatum like 5 years older?
yeah, I guess so. But I think if you ask around the league, people would say Anthony Edwards like as the better player, and I don't know if
No,
that's true.
no, not as a
You don't
better
think
player.
so? Okay.
No, not as maybe it's like who would I rather have to build my
Okay.
organization around because it gives you 5 more years
Okay.
because moving forward and there's also the money aspect of it because that
Sure.
guy's going to
Sure.
sell a shit ton of stuff.
Mhm.
But also Tatum also I think is third in the NBA in jersey sales every year. Super popular there in Boston. So like there's some things that he's doing right, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just his team is too good, I think, for him to get the credit that he kind of needs to. It's kind of like the Kobe conversation where when Kobe was playing with Shaq, everybody was like, yeah, Kobe's great, but he
Right.
also gets to
Yeah,
play with
Shaq.
Shaq. Kobe really elevated in terms of his all-time status once he won without Shaq, once he
Sure.
won with Powell instead. And I think that's what Tatum is going to have to do, where was drafted into such a great situation, and the situation kept on getting better around him. And now he's won a championship on one of the more loaded rosters and now continues to play on one of the more loaded rosters in the league. And I think there's a lot of people who kind of take what he does for granted because the Celtics can kind of take what he does for granted. If Tatum has it on any given night, you're not beating him. If he doesn't have it on any given night, you still might lose because Jaylen Brown is capable of winning a finals MVP.
Right. And like I think Tatum does a lot of stuff that's just not flashy, right? He's a great rebounder. He's a great help side defender. He's great at the point of it. Like, he just does a lot of things well, but it just doesn't have a signature move, doesn't have, doesn't fly through the air. So it's just, it's tough. But I'm sure in Boston he's loved, of course. I mean, he's their best player.
Justin Tyndall writes, Stephen A. Smith is the biggest try-hard media member who wishes he was a pro athlete, like telling ESPN to film him walking into the arena in the finals. I forgot about that. I forgot that he actually had the walk-in camera while that was going on. What a dweeb. All right, $20 million a year dweeb.
That's what
Raj, if somebody told you, hey, man, you have to do everything that Stephen A. Smith is doing and you will make $20 million a year, do you think you'd be able to do it without winking at the camera every so often?
Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I'd like someone to offer that up. I would definitely take the opportunity. If someone
Is it
wants
a
to take
guaranteed contract?
right,
Like,
right, right.
if I
Take the
can't, if
chance.
I can't do it, can I keep my money?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Next one here comes from Justin again. Speaking of fouls, lost my mind when Vando put a hand on White's hip while shooting a 3 during our comeback attempt, but Luka got mauled with no whistle. I'm not really one to complain about referees unless it gets egregious. I thought that next game was egregious, and that so apparently, as this was all going on, Mavericks fans were in my mentions, and I'm sure they've made appearances in your mentions, saying, "Yeah, John Goble is who's the referee that Chris Paul can't win playoff games with."
Scott Foster.
Scott Foster. That like John
Mhm.
Goble is basically Luka Doncic's Scott Foster,
Yeah.
and that play, I know you've seen the reverse. So the clip that I sent out
The
where
shove. Yeah.
Nick Claxton and Matt was trying to tell me that like it happens every play. Nick Claxton ran out of his way. The basket's here. Nick Claxton is over here. Luka Doncic is over here. If Nick wanted to go to get the rebound, he would have just run straight to the basket. But instead, he walked over here first and
Got a little
shoved
push. Yeah.
Luka and then went to the basket. I'm sorry, man. That doesn't happen every play. And if it does, it gets called almost always. And what was crazy is there was one referee who was looking right at it, but then there was another referee who had an even better angle on it, and it was our dude Goble.
Yeah. No.
And he just ignored it. It was
That
great. And it was nuts. And there was even the and one that Luka should have had that Goble made the call on. And Luka's like, I was clearly shooting. They showed the referees, and if he wasn't in the immediate shooting motion. It was definitely continuation. And he's trying to tell Goebel about it. And Goebel's just like, nope. I'll give you the foul, but I'm not going to give you the
Yeah.
extra point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something going on there, I think.
Yeah, I think, our point earlier, these are all humans, and I'm sure Luka doesn't help the issue at all. And I think Luka will eventually, mature and figure this stuff out. But he's definitely still in the me and the refs are enemies, and that's one way to go into it. And he's so good, it works out, most of the time. But I'm sure all the flailing and not really trying to shoot the ball, trying to really trick the ref, right? I think that's what refs get upset at the most. Not just drawing fouls, but you're trying to trick me that's a foul. And Luka has known to do that from time to time. And that was a weirdly ref game. Austin even talked about it in terms of how strange it was. And Brooklyn, I thought, was just a lot more physical. And they had this look on them that bad teams do. They went, oh, shoot, we can win this game?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We're going
back, when they tied it up after being down 15, there was a ton of belief on that sideline. And I was like,
yeah, that D'Lo step back three, and I know that felt good for him. He played it off, but I know that felt good for him to hit that step back three.
Did you see he said he felt traumatized by his experience as a Laker the second time?
So I took that as because he was here before and traded away. That's what I took as, like, people are saying he was traumatized from playoff games. That's not what he meant. He meant like he was traumatized because it was his second time here. At least that's how I took it as. Strange quote to give out before your free agency, but in any case, that's how I kind of read that.
All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Probably not going to record a lowdown tonight because there wasn't really much to report on. There was the whole, like, Sham saying that LeBron's going back to LA. Okay, cool. So there's not really anything to report there. So I'll go ahead and break this up. It'll be on the RSS feed everywhere that you get your podcast, specifically on Odyssey because I'm a company man. And then if you guys missed any of the conversation, go on back and rewatch it and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, all that good stuff. And after tomorrow night's game, Raj and I will be here to break it down. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.